Delighted on this episode to be putting a face with a name that I've seen in the world of comics, and we've been connected on social media, but so glad to be talking on this episode with Nandor Fox Shaffer. Nandor, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Jason. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited about what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, I know that you have a lineup of comics, Lifeline, The Fabled Offering, Man-Child, but today we're talking about Seasons, which you were also kind enough to share with me, and I appreciate having the chance to look through that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Seasons is intertwined with my origin story in comics. It was the first book that I ever started putting out for people to read, and so to be at this point in time after working on other projects and to try to find a new audience for it as we are heading into volume 3 and volume 4 to finish the series. It's really exciting. It's been a long time coming to get to this point, and this series has been with me for you know about 8 years or more. So it's been a long time coming.
It's nice. It's as though you knew I was going to ask about an origin story. I'm always curious about what gets people into comics and reading.
Yeah, comics have always been a part of my life. And it started with watching, the Incredible Hulk TV show, with Bill Bixby as a kid. Like my parents loved that show. I'd watch that with them. The Marvel movies, TV and film really introduced me to superheroes and to these larger than life characters. But um, when I was, able to start reading and found, going to the library and picking up graphic novels or going to a comic book store and learning about all of these characters and learning about all these histories, how much history there was to all these characters. Um, I was probably, I don't know, like around 7 or 8 years old, and started picking up comics. And I would just, I admired the art, of course, first. And then as you get older, and you're able to read more and check out more books, and you're able to pay for your own comics, instead of asking mom and dad all the time, like, hey, like, can we buy this? Can we get this? I started to learn so much about the medium and about just what makes comics so special. And I've just never been able to, like, there's never been a week or a month that I haven't picked up a comic, like it's just been a part of my life, and it's like another way to breathe for me.
Yeah. I think we have some common inspirations because you were talking before the recording about how Seasons has kind of a Crow meets Unbreakable kind of feeling to it. So, what was
Yeah.
the creative spark that led to the project?
Yeah, so when I was just out of high school, I was about 17, 18 years old, and I was considering like what did I want to go to college for? What kind of creative field or career did I want to have? And I knew I played music. I loved to draw. I loved film and television and comics, and I knew like the arts, like that's something I wanted to pursue. And with Seasons in particular, um, I was like, well, like, should I make a short film? Like, what kind of creative outlet could I get myself into to learn how to do something creatively in storytelling? Like, what does that look like? And comics was really the first thing that I grabbed onto that I thought I could um, find my voice and find like I had something to say and I could harness the medium in a way that I felt like I could do competently. And Seasons was the first. I don't even remember juggling different comic book ideas. It was really this idea of a character whose powers constantly changed. And that was really where Seasons began. And then I asked, you start asking yourself, well, why would they change? And I thought, well, maybe nature itself, has a say in why these abilities change. And what does that mean as a theme, thematically, like going through changes in your life and having these different abilities to be able to do these special things. And so everything just kind of coalesced and came together to this idea of following a character, uh, through 1 year of his life and what kind of evolution that character would go through. And it was really reading, James O'Barr's The Crow, and watching films like Unbreakable, which is like it's like when I think of Unbreakable, if you're a comic book fan, you get so much more out of it than someone who's a
Mm-hmm.
novice or who just maybe likes M. Night Shyamalan's films, because he's able to weave a superhero story that's not really a superhero story, and that's what makes it so interesting. And Seasons, in that same way, I'm taking and I'm bringing all of my love for superheroes and comics, but I'm fashioning it in a way that I think is a bit more, on the supernatural bent or the more horror bent, with some, you know, um, slice of life elements to it. And so it um, really came from this desire to write a grounded superhero tale, but do it in a way where Fletcher himself as a character could be you, could be me, could be someone we bump into on the street, and he's not extraordinary, and that's what makes him extraordinary.
Yeah. I'm curious about the writing process for you. How did the story unfold that way?
Yeah, so I had no idea at the outset of Seasons, how to write a comic book story and what that even looks like. And so what I did is I searched for examples of comic book scripts, of getting an idea of how you lay out a script, and how many pages do I want this to be? What kind of format do I want this book to be? Like, do I want it to be a graphic novel or a single issue series? And at the time when I first started working on it, I had these grand plans of, like being picked up by Image Comics and being able to, do this big series. And, looking back, like it was so ambitious that I was like, man, like I don't know what I was thinking, because the indie comics landscape in the comic book industry is so um it everyone finds their own path, and there's not one correct way to get into the industry, to break into the industry. So for me, the writing process, I was thinking about the format and how would I pitch this to publishers and all of that. And but eventually, I kind of got rid of thinking about all of that, and I was just focused on the story and how could I make the best story possible. And when I realized it was going to be 4 volumes because I needed to do this 1 year journey, um, I thought, okay, we're going to start with spring because that is the beginning. Like it's the birth of something. It's when new life begins. And so when I was able to, really focus on that and trying to make the first, the best book possible with this first volume, um, I knew I was going to have to just focus on the character and try to introduce and find my way, because I had never written anything else before, really, that was like a story. And so a lot of it was trial and error and trying to figure out structure and how I'm going to lay this out. And, a lot of it was like looking at first time creators and their first books, and how many issues was it? How many chapters was it? What kind of page count are we looking at? And trying to make sure that whatever I put in for this first volume kind of followed those examples. And I've met so many people over the years who are just amazing writers, and I've learned so much about how to write a story in these last 5 6 years before after writing Season. So it's been really interesting to kind of look back on it and go, you know how did I do this, how was I thinking about this, and It was really just absorbing comics all my life and watching film and TV and analyzing art and analyzing story that I was able to figure out the structure and figure out my way around how to write a comic book story. And so, and I hadn't even met Anthony yet. I didn't, I knew the visual flavor of what I was going for and what I wanted. But nowadays, when I write a script, I'm thinking about who I'm writing it for because I usually have an artist in mind. But
Mhm.
with Seasons, I had no one in mind. It was just, I think this is the way to do it. And I just, plunged in.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Great writing comes from a lot of reading, right? And a lot of viewing
Yes.
and a lot of immersing yourself in story.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people can feel kind of intimidated when they're starting out because they're like, I maybe like, I'm self-taught, like I didn't necessarily go to have any writing classes or take a course on comic book writing or anything like that. I just when you in now in this day and age of the internet and all these resources we have, we can really learn so much. Like you don't necessarily always have to get a degree in something to be good at it, but and in the arts it can be so subjective sometimes. But it's kind of the fundamentals of structure, narrative, and a character arc, and kind of learning those things and um, you know going back to The Crow and Unbreakable, both of those stories um, are very unorthodox in a lot of ways. They're very experimental, I would say, especially The Crow. And it's a book that you pick up and you don't necessarily see the logic of it all, but you feel it all. And that is something that is really powerful. And that was always something that for me, I was like, James O'Barr, like he's bleeding onto the page. Like this book is um it's not necessarily about, well, like, what kind of plot are we going for, this highbrow concept idea. It's a very emotionally charged book, and whenever you can tap into that and find that, that's kind of your anchor. And so that was always something I would go back to with Seasons. It's like, maybe I don't know all the bells and whistles and the tricks on how to write a good story, but if I can focus on the character and the heart of what this is all about, hopefully I'll find my way.
Yeah. What was it like to see it come to life after you moved it from script to the hands of an artist? What was the work of the team like on that?
Oh man, it was extraordinary. I mean, this was like the first time I was able to work with an artist and see what I had written come to life. And even after the other projects I've worked on over the years, it's still the most exciting thing ever to be able to work with someone and to see like someone as talented as Anthony in particular, to see what they're able to do. um you know all of the artists I've worked with have made my writing better and have made the script way better than I thought. And sometimes it validates it, where you're like, I don't know, like maybe this will work in the script, maybe not, like let's see and see, kind of see how it comes about, and then the artist will take it and magnify it and make it even more better than you thought it could be, and you go, wow, like actually that idea worked and that was really cool. And it's only because of their talent that they're able to make that work. And so for me, with working with Anthony, when we started, this was his first book as well. Like he'd done um some pages for some like pitches and but never like a full book, and never a full volume of anything. And so we were both first time creators trying to make something together. And it was all about passion. It was all about how could we make this the best book possible. And the sky's the limit, and what can we learn with each page. And as you go from volume one to volume two, you see Anthony progress as an artist as only natural, because if you're doing, both of these volumes are over 100 pages each, it's like you would get better and you would see an artist get better over time. And so not only has it been like, not only was it so cool to start and to start to see the process of Anthony's work and us collaborate together, but then to see him get better just made me go, wow, like this story by the end is going to look absolutely insane. And we would do these like 2 to 3 hour live sessions where he would thumbnail um, each page and we would go through it together and we would work on it together. So it was a very involved process where we were talking in real time about what was happening on the page and how it could be shown. And even though I had full scripts, it was so much more enjoyable. And the book, I think, is better for it to be able to have that real time collaboration. So to watch him work in real time and then to get the finished page eventually, there were many days where I just couldn't believe this was like actually real and it was happening.
It's nice. Well, glad that it has come together, and I always like to give space for you to share where people can find you, where they can support the work and see more of it. So, anything like that that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, for sure. So, we have the Kickstarter that's live right now, and that'll be going until November 20th. And so recommend people check that out. We have a lot of great variant covers and some original art tiers available. We also, have a ash can for volume three. So this is like the first sneak peek at what the next book is going to look like. And so you can really see Anthony's evolution with that as well. So that's really cool. But I do have a newsletter for people to check out, foxholecomics.substack.com. And I also have my Gumroad store where you can purchase my previous book. So it's foxholecomics.gumroad.com. And that's kind of my little online store that I have. But all of my previous books are available for this campaign. So if anyone's interested in Manchild or Lifeline or the Fabled Offering, they'll all be able to check them out there as add-ons that they can add to their order.
Wonderful. Well, Nandor, glad to connect with you. Glad to have you back anytime. May the conversation continue and may the work continue to grow.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate it.